Well, hello, hello. This is Joanna Clark with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching. And today is my Facebook Live on Get Your Life Back. It starts with sleep. And today I have two questions that were submitted. And what you'll probably notice in my description is that this week has been crazy. Every single phone call, every email inquiry has all been around 2 and 3-year-olds causing major drama at bedtime. And therefore, the drama has also been leading to regression behaviors, and parents are so frustrated and they're so confused because things had been going really well. And it's like everything just started to fall apart. And so they're frustrated, they're confused, they're overwhelmed, they're irritated for sure. And they're desperate to get to a resolution and to get things back on track. So today, that's what I decided we're definitely going to focus on, because I think that when it comes to 2 and 3-year-olds, there's always going to be some curveballs. That is pretty much parenting a 2 and 3-year-old, is just recognizing and accepting that curveballs is really part of the developmental phase. And really with 2 and 3-year-olds, I received this advice when I had a 2 and 3-year-old long ago, because now my daughter is nearly 17. But this has held true through all 10 years, also through all the conversations I've had with parents over the last 10 years of being a gentle sleep coach about what is true for virtually every 2 and 3-year-old. And that is that where they are developmentally, kind of cognitively, developmentally, when they're 2 and 3, is their job is to push boundaries. And our job is to hold boundaries. And what happens a lot with 2 and 3-year-olds is they start really pushing boundaries at bedtime. And sometimes we don't even really realize that's what's happening. And so we don't even recognize that there are boundaries being pushed. And so then we're not holding the boundary, which is really what our job is. And so then all of a sudden they push, 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 push until we end up in a regression situation with sleep. So that's kind of, I just want to say that out loud, because as I talk about some of the concerns that Rochelle and Amy had, that they wrote into me and said, can we discuss this? Can we discuss my case? That I want to lay that down as the foundation. Okay, so sorry, you guys, I'm all of a sudden, I'm being clicked out of StreamYard, or I've lost my view. Okay, so anyway, so first of all, if there's anyone out there listening right now, I'd love you to just jump in and say hello and let me know where you're from. I'm Joanna Clark with Blissful Baby Sleep Coaching. Just remember, I am a gentle sleep coach. I do not believe in cry it out. So everything we're going to be talking about today is through the lens of sleep science and behavioral science and attachment theory. And I really strive to be the place to come for accurate and reliable information so that you can feel like you can take this information and be really productive, and help yourself, make sleep a priority in your house and know the right direction in which to go. All right, so my first question is coming from Rochelle F. Rochelle is from California, and she has a 3-year-old boy. And she said right up the bat, she said, I'm just going to let you know, I've gotten a little lax with our bedtime routine. Okay. And I'm glad that you disclosed that to me, Rochelle, because that's an important thing that might have started or triggered this bedtime battling situation that you are in. Again, thinking of that as a mother of a 2 and 3-year-old, their job developmentally is to push our boundaries, and our job as the parent during this time is to hold the boundary. So with that being said, right off the bat, she says, I might have made a boo-boo. I got a little bit lax with my routine, which happens. You guys, it's summertime. We're in the land of COVID. Maybe there's a really good show you wanted to watch. There was a Zoom birthday party that you wanted to attend with your friends. Of course it's going to happen. So I'm not looking for perfection here. Like whenever we're talking about these recommendations, life happens. I mean, I'm a parent too. I totally understand. But we want to know that when we're too lax continuously, that's where we can have like little cracks in our foundation, which lead to sleep regressions. So what happened is that he's 3. And so she decided to move from the crib to the toddler bed. And then what has then happened when she made this transition, and I'm quoting her, she said, he thinks of a zillion reasons to get up and come out of bed. And she said, this drags on for hours. And the hard part of this, that when he was in the crib, he had really good sleeping behavior. And so for her, the fact that she transferred from a crib to a big boy bed, you know, this is very common, by the way, Rochelle, that lots of families believe, you know, when my child's in the crib and we have sleep behaviors, that when we go over the big boy bed or over to the big girl bed, that it's going to be really easy. Not necessarily. So when you are making the transfer to the big boy bed or the big girl bed, you have to plan in advance. It's not something to just randomly decide to do. And it's definitely not something to do in reaction to a child jumping out of the crib or demanding sleep crutches, and you decide, oh, maybe it'll be better on the floor with us. Like, it's developmentally moving from the crib to the toddler bed is a really big transition, and it's best if you prepare in advance and create these appropriate boundaries around the transition so that the transition goes smoothly, your child can be successful, and that they're able to continuously practice their sleep skills in that new environment and feel safe and secure. So for Rochelle, she's like, I'm a failure as to know what happened. Like, I have no idea why things were good and now they're bad. And she is, I loved what you said here, Rochelle. She says, I need grown-up time. I love that. Yeah, we all do. As mothers and fathers, we absolutely need a kid-free time during our day. It's a requirement. And so let's talk about what she wants. She says, what I want in the end is that I want order back at bedtime. I want it to feel less stressful, and I want to feel like I recognize my life again. So in this very short period of time, when she made the transition from the crib to the big boy bed and things spun out of control really quickly, somehow her life became unrecognizable. Okay, who here can say, oh yeah, I hear that? And even on the replay, you know, feel free to write in the comments and say, yeah, my life does not feel recognizable anymore. And my goal in doing these Facebook Lives, and my goal in working with my families one-on-one, is I want you to not only recognize your life, I want you to love your life and love your life parenting your child. And I want you to have, as Rochelle says, adult time for yourself and for your partner. Okay, so what happened? So basically what's happening with her 3-year-old son is that he is doing a lot of what we call bedtime stalling, bedtime requesting, and curtain calling. All right. So what this looks like is she does her whole routine like she normally does. And when she goes to put him in the toddler bed, he's probably giving her a litany of requests. I need another kiss. I need another book. I need more water. I need to go potty. I want a cheese stick. I want that toy versus that toy. I want you to sit here. I want you to hold my hand. I want you to rub my back. I mean, the requests that they will have will go on and on and on. And in the beginning of this behavior, which again is developmentally appropriate, the requests seem very manageable. Sure, I'll read one more book. Sure, I'll give you an extra kiss. Sure, I'll stay here a couple extra minutes while you fall asleep. It's a very, you know, in the beginning, the requests seem very normal and very, you know, it's not a problem for you. But the thing that you need to know about the requesting and the stalling is it has nothing to do with what they're asking for. what they're doing is they're trying to keep you in the room and keep you engaged so that they don't have to go to bed. So it's not that if you give them that last book or you give them that last kiss, that somehow they'll say, oh, now I feel really satisfied and I'm just going to peacefully go to sleep. No, maybe that happens sometimes on a really good night, but most of the time there's a request after request after request. And as the days go by and this requesting behavior is reinforced, meaning they do a request, you do it. And the next night they have 2 more requests and you do those 2 requests. As the days go by that this continues, the requests get more demanding, more time consuming, and they become becoming stressful to you because you then end up in power struggle and tantrums, which is essentially where Rochelle has ended up. She's ended up in power struggle and tantrums at bedtime. And then if she's even actually able to be successful and get him to go to sleep, she's or what she thinks is maybe he's asleep, he's doing curtain calling. So what's happening is it might be quiet in there for half an hour and all of a sudden out he comes and he's looking around, what's going on? Or in the middle of the night, curtain calls. He'll come paddling down the hallway and come into the master bedroom. And then again, in the middle of the night, when she walks him back, which is the right thing to do, most likely there'll be some additional requests coming from him. Stay longer, hold my hand, et cetera, et cetera. And so what happens after all of this is that you end up getting some sleep crutches, being by accident, literally by accident, being into the sleep chain. And once that happens, then you are now officially deeply in a regression. Okay, so a regression is when your child previously had beautiful sleep skills. And remember, sleep is a learned skill. So there's 3 skills they need to be able to have. They need to be able to self-regulate, self-settle, self-soothe, the onset of sleep at bedtime, at the right sleep window, so that in the middle of the night when they have a partial arousal, they can go back to sleep by using those same sleep skills. And so a child that had beautiful, healthy sleep habits should be able to, when a regression happens, it really means that some sleep disruptions happened and by accident, the parent reintroduced a sleep crutch, which is defined as anything that has to be done to or for a child at onset of sleep at bedtime. Will typically want some form of that support in the middle of the night. So for Rochelle, the bedtime requesting started creating power struggle and drama at bedtime. And then in the middle of the night when he had partial arousal, he wanted to kind of have that same interaction in the middle of the night. And then it goes round and round and round. Okay. So that's why you got there, Rochelle. And again, this is no shame, no blame. Like regressions do happen because again, their job is to push boundaries. Our job is to hold them. So he got to a point around bedtime where he realized he could start pushing boundaries. And they push until we start to create the appropriate boundaries. And so what we're going to have to do, Rochelle, is you're probably going to have to do a little bit of sleep coaching with him for about, I would say to maybe unwind this. I don't know how deep the sleep crutches are because that's something you didn't give me. So if you're here, Rochelle, and you want to tell me a little bit more about what has to be done to and for your son to go to sleep or go back to sleep in the middle of the night, then I can give you some more specific directions. But I'm just going to be going on the data that I have here in front of me. Is that you're probably going to have to do a little bit of sleep training with him, probably over the course of 5 to 7 days, where you're going to really need to hone in on locking down his bedtime routine and really making sure that you're nailing his sleep window at the onset of sleep at bedtime, and that you help him manage his requests before bedtime. So in other words, make sure that in his big boy bed that he likes his pillow, he likes his comforter, he knows how to get himself comfortable in his bed by himself, make sure he's got his water, whatever he needs right there at bedtime that he's been requesting from you, make sure he has all of that before you turn off the lights. And then once you turn off the lights, then you have to be consistent about walking him back to the room and staying with him usually until he falls asleep. and then leaving again. And so what you're going to need to do is, and again, this is where it gets hard, because sleep training is a very important method. Sleep training is about creating the right environment and circumstances for your child to be successful. And so you have to be very mindful and deliberate about creating that right circumstance and environment. And so when you're looking at a regression, you have to go in with a sleep plan. You have to sit down with your partner and go, okay, we have a regression. These are the sleep crutches that have been developed. This is why it happened. And then now we're going to follow a certain methodology to unwind these sleep crutches, or also tighten up his clear expectations, and that we don't get into the slippery slope like we just did. And then you look at your calendar and you focus on it for 5 or 7 days, so that you can be really super consistent as you're implementing your sleep plan to get out of this regression. So as you guys know, I trained with Kim West, who wrote Good Night Sleep Tight, which is, this is the newest edition of the book. I'll put this link in the comments for you, but it's also in the bio of this. There's a really amazing section on 2 and 3-year-olds, and there's a really good recommendation about creating a sleep manners book, which is a wonderful way to reestablish the routine and to create very kind, loving expectations for your child around bedtime. And then what I would recommend for you as a sleep plan is I would do a modified Sleep Lady shuffle for 5 to 7 days. And that would mean that you would switch positions or be in each position no more than 2 days per position, and be out of the room within five days. And with the last 2 days, having you be out of the room and having your child be successful to not come out of the room. So that's how I would manage your situation, Rochelle. And, feel free to come back and ask more questions on these Facebook Lives. I also do sleep strategy sessions that you can schedule with me individually, so that you can have one-on-one feedback and support on what to do on your unique situation if this Facebook Live is just not enough for you, or if you have more questions. But Rochelle, that's how I would help you manage your regression. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next question, which is super similar. This is Amy, and Amy is also from California, and she has a 2-year-old. And Amy's son also had really good sleep habits. And this was such a shock to her when this happened, because they had been loving for 2 years, they had really made sleep a priority in their house. Their child had independent sleep skills at the onset of sleep at bed. He would go to bed at 7. He would sleep almost 11 and a half hours per night, and he would take a nice big juicy nap in the middle of the day. And they had a beautiful schedule. And as parents, they were really able to, easily manage life in COVID, and everything was going well. Well, one night, this is just one night that this happened. One night he said he was scared. And so he said, stay with me and hold my hand. And again, super easy request, seems reasonable. Okay, sure, I'll sit with you if you're having a hard time tonight, and I'll hold your hand. And then the next night, I need that. Oh, maybe he's going through a tough time of the scaries. Okay, sure, I'll sit here and hold your hand. And now all of a sudden the hand holding is going on, not for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but now it's taking 40 minutes or an hour. Bedside, waiting, hoping for this child to finally fall into a deep sleep. But of course, that whole time that she's patiently and lovingly holding his hand and wishing that he would go to sleep, there's all this additional bedtime requesting. Can you do this? And I want that. And chit-chatting with her. And then he started concocting, and this is what always happens. They start to concoct more fears. My crib's broken. And all of a sudden became this big thing that his crib was broken and he didn't want to be in his crib. And so poor Amy was like pretending to fix the crib. She went and got her tools and she brought it in and she showed him that she's fixing the crib. And then she did it the next day in the daylight hours to prove to him that his crib works great and that it's a safe place to be. But again, you guys, this is what's so tricky about bedtime requesting, bedtime stalling. It's never about the bed being broken. It's never about the request. It's never about pretending to fix the bed. That's not what it's about. He just wants to have her in the room and stay engaged because that's developmentally appropriate for his age and stage. So what happened is things went out of control really fast. They ended up taking apart the crib, rebuilding it in the master bedroom, and thinking that would solve it. That didn't solve it. So then they turned it into the toddler bed, and now they've got a 2-year-old in a toddler bed in their master bed who wasn't sleeping. So I just want you guys to know, like, this happens all the time. So what I'm trying to do is normalize this so that if it's happening to you, you aren't like embarrassed or just in shock and horror because this is happening to you and you don't want anyone to know that it's happened. It happens all the time. The key is to know when it's happening to you so that you don't end up hitting the drama cycles like Rochelle and Amy before they went, oh, wow, maybe it isn't about the request. So as you can imagine, Amy is also super frustrated. She is craving her evenings back. She's craving personal time and time with her partner. And she's also wondering, because she has a 2-year-old, she's wondering, like, is this about the toddler bed? Like, is he ready for the toddler bed or is this something else? So that's the other thing that I just want to mention here is that, when we're talking, like, we're talking about a 3-year-old, around 3 and 3.5, that's an appropriate time to move a child to a big boy bed or a big girl bed. That's an appropriate time. Any younger than that, to be totally honest with you guys, I see disasters with children that are 2, 2.5, that are being moved to the big boy bed or big girl bed too soon. And I see situations like this that become a reaction. Like, they don't really want their child in a big boy bed, but the child ended up in a big boy bed because of a regression event, which is not the reason to ever make the transfer. The transfer to a big boy bed should be a very mindful, planned, well-executed transition. Again, so the child feels super safe, super comfortable, super confident, and that you as the parent know it's going to go smoothly and you won't end up in regression. Whereas in Amy's situation, it was kind of like, well, I don't know what else to do, so maybe he'd rather sleep on the toddler bed, or maybe he'd rather sleep on the air mattress below our master bed. That's worst case scenario. So with Amy, what recommendation would be, Amy, is that 2-year-olds typically are not ready for the big boy bed at all. And that what I would do is go back. I would rebuild the crib back in his nursery because again, this child had really good sleep skills. So we know he can do it. We just need to start creating that right circumstance and that right environment for him to be successful. We need to recognize that the bedtime requesting and the drama about the crib being broken that's just him trying to stay engaged with you at bedtime. So one thing that that's super important that became evident with the information that Amy shared in her form is that she clearly was missing the sleep window of her son. So when she was going to go put him to bed, he was already really hyper and wired and tired, and that always starts to create. It always becomes more difficult for the child to settle down appropriately to want to go to sleep, and that's when they start requesting because they're all hyper. So one thing that I would recommend to Amy is let's go back to the basics and recognize what his sleep windows are. So from with a 2-year-old, from morning wake up to nap, the first nap, typically they're awake no more than 5 to 6 hours. And then typically they're taking about an hour to an hour and a half nap, sometimes up to a 2-hour nap. And then at the time that they wake up from their afternoon nap to the time that they need to be asleep at bedtime is somewhere between 4 and 5 hours. And it's possible that, you know, she was actually putting him down probably around the 5-hour mark or 5.5-hour mark. And then that was just too late for him. And so he was all jazzed up on cortisol, and then all the requesting happened. And then of course, you know, the sleep crutches with the hand holding showed up, etc. So if there's other people out here that have a child between, like, let's say 18 months and 3 years of age that were previously good sleepers in the crib, and all of a sudden an event caused a regression, the first place I would start looking is at their sleep windows and recognize that you're probably missing them, that there was probably a developmental shift, and that you wake periods between the time they wake up in the morning to the first nap and the time between nap and bedtime. And the other thing, Amy, is that yes, you're probably going to have to do a little bit of sleep training to clean up some of these sleep crutches that have been developed. Again, you guys, I could talk all day about how to sleep train, but I can't talk all day, nor would you want to listen to me talk all day necessarily, because you have other important things to do, like caretaking your baby. Good night, sleep tight. I would go to the section on 2-year-olds and I would look at how to clean up a regression there and do a modified shuffle. Or if you had sleep trained in the past and found a methodology that worked really well for you, then you might want to go back to that original methodology and use that. Okay, so let's see. I've got Valerie asked a question. She says, oh, thanks, Valerie. Let me see. Let me show you guys what Valerie had to say. Let's see if I can get this going here. Valerie says, super interested in what you're discussing. So intrigued by attachment theory too. You're an amazing speaker. So thank you, Valerie. That's so sweet. It's very weird talking to yourself with Facebook. So I'm glad that you're finding it engaging. Yes, attachment theory is super interesting. That is definitely one of the foundations of my practice, is integrating, as I said, sleep science, behavioral science, and attachment theory, because we work so hard to make sure that we are loving, emotionally present parents. And so we want to be able to do that at all of their ages and stages. And also during difficult times when you have to kind of be the adult, you know, like that, this concept that everyone's using right now, it's, you know, I'm adulting, right? So, you know, even if we're in our 40s, we still have to, like, sometimes shift high gear into, like, adulting. And sometimes it's hard to create appropriate boundaries with our children, but it is literally the most loving thing you can do. And my philosophy on sleep is that sleep matters to everybody. You know, the thing that I love to say is sleep is bliss for you and your family, right? So I don't want any sleep deprived mommies walking around the planet and sleep deprived dads. Parenting's hard. And if we can do it when we are well rested, everything gets easier. And so when your child has sleep struggles, there is always a way to resolve them and to have your child sleep blissfully. You just need the good, accurate, reliable information and the right plan, and you need consistency, and you need to be in unity with your partner. And then all things are possible for beautiful, beautiful sleep. So anyway, so to sum it all up, those of you that have 2- and 3-year-olds, don't worry. This is normal. No shame, no blame. Just recognizing what's happening and making the appropriate adjustments. And so I'm just going to put a couple of things here in the chat so that you guys can grab this. If this information, if you still have more questions and you want to speak with me, I'm putting in here in the chat that you can, and this is also in the bio, make an appointment to speak with me and talk with me one-on-one about your unique situation. I love connecting with families on Zoom, so that would be my joy to assist you in that way. Also, you know, I have I am a featured sleep expert on a international best-selling book called The One Thing Every Mom Needs to Know and The One Thing Every Mompreneur Needs to Know. And I've put an audio chapter together in this, this book. The One Thing Every Mom Needs to Know is where I'm the featured expert on this #1 international bestseller. And my chapter, I put it on audio because I know it's so hard for us moms to have to spend time to read. And so I put it on audio. And so just put the link in there so that you can download that audio for yourself and listen to that chapter and get some other insights about what might be keeping your child awake last night. Because if you don't have a 2 and 3-year-old, but you're listening to this, but you're having other sleep struggles, that might be a good place to start to get some information. And the last thing that I'm going to put in here is my ages and stages sleep guidelines. Parents are always, they love this because they're like, they want a 1-pager on everything they need to know about the sleep expectations for their child at each age and stage and what the sleep windows are, etc. So that can be a super handy 1-pager that you can have a great reference point. So thank you so much for being here. If you're watching this on replay, feel free to do #replay, and I will absolutely go back in there and answer some of your questions. Oh, one last thing. If you want me to answer your particular question next week, then what I would recommend that you do is you can submit a form to give me the background situation so that I can come in and give you a customized response. And you can do that. And I'm just putting the link right there so that you can do that as well. So again, thank you so much. And I hope you guys stay safe and sane during this bizarre time with COVID. Okay, take care.